For read what I've got here, I just came from a presentation that I did at Wildflower Church, talking about being transgender and talked about some other things. Was looking forward to that, and this is month I've been looking forward to here. I've been busy over the last month. I've actually started. I've got 3 projects writing that I'm currently writing about. I'm writing about a draw measurement. I'm writing about a GYN appointment, and I'm writing about one other thing. So I've got 3 writing projects currently going on. And what I am noticing is as I'm writing those 3 things, the poetry that I've been writing over the last 6 months, I'm finding there's a big difference in that.
Yeah.
Having to put a lot more into the poetry, but poems that I have done and poems I've read, I've got a lot of compliments on. So I got 2 things going on. And I would like to share something here I wrote back in June. If I died today, tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year, would you shed a tear? Would you care? You were never there. You never felt my pain. Never felt the tears or calmed my fears. Never held my hand or gave me a hug. What's my life to you if I died? Were you there when they tested my will? Did you ever show goodwill? Would you know that I lived, that I tried? Or just think it's another, or just think it's another suicide, another nameless soul, another life which never mattered, just a worthless pound of flesh and bones. No one to confide. Was my life even worth a dime if I died? I never lied, never hid my inside. All of my heart, always did what's right. And I took that road less traveled.
Maria Clark.
It's actually an experimental piece that if anybody has any feedback on, that would be great. Because I've written this about 5 times, and this is the first time that I'm somewhat satisfied with it. It's called The Color of Words. The wind blew, carrying the wistful wishes and heartfelt woes of others with it, up and away into the clear blue sky. Robin smiled as his chestnut curls bounced with a sensation. It was playful and calmed him for what he was about to do. It'd been years since he last spoke to Andy. He'd been different then, so much different. Robin recalled Andy on the first day of camp. He strolled into the sunlit cabin, bustling with the sounds of 11 other boys unpacking and chattering on about their plans. He vividly remembered the green bed sheets, soft gray pillows, and the brown wooden planks of the bunk beds that matched the cabin walls. Andy wore a bright yellow polo shirt with the camp logo on it, forest green shorts, and tan hiking boots, worn and dirty. Robin felt his chest constrict, and he knew that summer would change his life forever. The summer seemed to melt together, the days and weeks all leaking out into each other, so time and sequence seemed something completely fabricated and unreal. It all just was. What Robin did remember, though, was Andy and the many hues of his soul he came to know and the many others he wished to see. Andy had given that summer the breath of vibrant life that had burned into Robin's mind that he could recall so many years later. He could remember it all, down to the blue of his shorts that seemed a truer blue than anything he'd ever seen before. When Robin thought back, he saw the crystalline water when Andy touched it and the rainbows dancing in the droplets that landed on Robin's shirt. But most of all, he remembered that brilliant smile that eclipsed the sun. Robin sighed, returning to the present in that pretty white gazebo with the petite purple flowers. They danced with the wind, and he sensed someone coming. "Hey, Robin," said a serious voice. It was Andy. He'd know that voice anywhere. The voice that was the anchor of Andy's entire being. It was the base that gave rise to the endless prism that he radiated, and Robin couldn't look up. "Hi, Andy. It's been a while." Andy nodded, sitting in front of him. Robin wore blue jeans with a great button down, the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. It was semi-formal, but he wanted Andy to see a man, not a boy. "You look good," he said stiffly. Robin felt his face redden. "You too." There was an awkward shuffle. A gloom seemed to linger between them, thick and dark, and it was a feeling that Robin had never experienced with Andy before. "What is it that you wanted to talk about?" Robin nodded. There was no time like the present, and he took a breath. "I just wanted to tell you that I've been in love with you since that summer, all those years ago." He paused, and he said nothing. "That summer changed me for the rest of my life. Every memory with you is as crisp and bright as the day it happened, and I decided that I would finally tell you how I feel. Recently, I realized I need to make sure I say what I feel to the ones I care about the most. Life is too fleeting, and I don't want to waste a single precious second. I knew I had to start with you." And he was quiet for a long time. "Thank you. I'm sorry if I disappoint you now," he said bitterly. "Why do you say that? You haven't looked at me since I got here. I'm sorry to ruin your image of me after seeing me again." "I don't understand," Robin stammered. This wasn't how he'd seen it happen. "It's hard to hide the burns all over my body," he spat. "I didn't want you to see me like this. I wanted to always be the me from that summer so many years ago." Robin felt something tearing up behind his dark sunglasses, and he wiped the clear mucus from his reddening nose. "I'll go now. Thank you for coming to tell me this. It means a lot." And he stood. "You don't understand. I don't see your burn marks. You haven't changed to me." "That's nice of you, but things like that hurt more than they help." "No, you see," Robin paused. Andy paused, and even the carefree wind seemed to hold its playful breath, waiting to see what happened next. "I had an accident too." Robin reached for Andy's hand and held it in his as he finally looked up. He removed his glasses, eyes shut tight in anxiousness, the tears crawling down his blotchy face. His wet eyes opened. "I don't see your burns," he smiled bitterly, "because I am now blind."
Birdman, 313.
Actually, I'm gonna read this 2 short poems, and I think both of them are so short, it won't even take a minute. This one here, I've been switching up on what poem I'm reading, but this one here is in my last book that I published, which is called Words from the Heart. And this poem here was actually from a TV series that we used to watch on Sunday nights, Penny Dreadful. So this is called Demons of the Night. A voice whispers softly in the still of the night. The wind whistles as the door screeches shut. Footsteps are heard in the dark. Snarling, howling, and hissing is heard. In the dark distance, Dr. Victor Frankenstein, Dr. Van Helsing, and Jack the Ripper are lurking in the night. Blood dripping and flies buzzing as a creature prowls in the late of night. Bloodthirsty creatures from beyond the star. Unfortunate souls to live forever as demons of the night. Told you it's gonna be short. And this next one is even shorter than that. It's a couple lines, but I know a lot of people have been complaining about what's been going on in NFL, so I kind of wrote something. Talked to Teresa already about it. She said, cool, it was good to read. It's called Where and When. If you know it's wrong to do it in the streets, then it's wrong to do it in tweets. If all you want to do is kneel, then why can't you do it on the field? Do you have to be rich to make an appeal? So you know there's one thing that's a fact. You cannot protest if you are black. Whoa.
That was my favorite line. Steve Quackenbush.
3 days, won't use up all your 5 minutes. Thump, 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 we hear this in war. Machinations come home. Thump of music, thump of feet, massacred innocents. Fell blows to freedom, we are changed yet again. Record setting like a box score. We were keeping score. Machine gun dance. No one had a chance. Bullet bromance. Simple in its elegance. Just a crazy. No terrorism here. No terrorism here. Lone wolf accusations. His teeth provided by legislation. 600 lives hinged on a regulation. Non-stop projectile manifestations. Rich enough to buy mass murder. Who sold him out? Who carries such clout? That's what this is not about. That's not what this is about. Throwing red meat to the devout. A change needs to be brought about. 600 babies, would that fix the problem? 600 daughters and mothers. 600 fathers and brothers. 600 for shock and awe. 600 is so small. 600 is a number. Numbers are not people at all. 600 injured, 59 killed. No people behind the story. People are assumed. So common, it has become. This one is entitled Behind Belief. We are a hidden people. The world sees our stars. The world sees our troops. The world sees our richest. The world knows us not. We are not all gun people. We are not all drug dealers. We are not all obese. We are not all anti-immigrant. We are not our government. We are the Cajun Navy. We are first responders. We are poor. We are destitute. We are homeless. We are hungry. We are oppressed. We are gifted. We are educated. We are illiterate. We are convicts. We are preachers. We are all religions. We are good and evil. We're all colors in every language, every religion. We are beaches and mountains and forests and deserts. We're people. We're families. We are communities. We are unable to see ourselves as one people. We are Americans. We are not all the same. We are 70 years of hard work. We are moon landers. We are cowboys. We are Indians. We are tolerant and kind. We give. We hurt. We are human and imperfect. We are art, music, and dance. We are young people. We did not see you as these things either. We are all hiding behind our beliefs. We know only of you what we are told. We buy mostly fear, for that is what is sold. You are hidden behind our beliefs. I think that's it.
Cathrin Gordon.
So this piece, I recently came out of a 9-year relationship, and so I've been single for 2.5 years, and I just re-entered the dating pool. And if you've been with somebody that long, everything's kind of changed on me a little. So it's been like a whole new thing. And so as part of that, as all of you must know, when a relationship ends, it's a lot like a death. And so I went through this mini catharsis, and this is what this piece came from that. It's called Being. My darling, there is something I have to share. In my life, there has been death all around me. Death and the shadow. Like a chair alone in a room, overlooking a vacant window. No breeze, no noise, only silence, stillness, memory, and lack of memory. Death sits in my stomach and over my head, pours over my silhouette like electric shocks through the hairs on my skin, and dampens the ecstasy of connection, of forgiveness, the vibrancy of love, which pours against and through death like a hand piercing in icy cold water. I meet death and call it living. I meet life in spite of death, and the walls between the two crumble to form one being, one moment of pleasure, of release, of surrender, of trust, of vulnerability, evolution. And in that moment, there is no death, only being.
Yes,
Lynn, Herrick.
It was a dark and just wrote it. I gotta remember the tune. It was a dark and stormy night. Stepped into a bar, 'cause it wasn't far. Hadn't a clue, but ooh, what did I spy? Wah, wah, it was a dark and stormy night. Thought that I was stuck when the storm came up. And something caught my oh so private eye. Thought I heard the shot, but it was my heart going boom. You blew me away, why, across the room. And since the dark and stormy night, when your eyes met mine, you're my Valentine. Giving me cheer for all the year. Keeping me warm when there's a storm. Keeping me warm when it's dark. Keeping me warm each dark and stormy night. Wah, 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 wah. Keeping me warm each dark and stormy. Wah, 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 wah,
And the lucky person who gets to follow that is Ursula Pike. That was so cute. All right, this is a piece called Rufus. A 60-watt bulb hung from the business end of a dusty pendulum of wires over our bed. There was no switch. We had to cup the bulb in our hand and twist it until it lit. One night after midnight, the bulb flashed brightly, waking me, and then went black. My boyfriend in the bed next to me didn't move. I ran through a variety of rational explanations for the light coming on. It's an old house with crappy wiring, I told myself. I pulled the covers up over my head. We lived in an old Mississippi dog trot house. It had a long, narrow breezeway running from the front porch to the back. Many houses in that part of eastern Mississippi, built before AC, had breezeways to keep them cool. The outside of the house was covered in weathered wooden boards, split and arching from decades of exposure. The wind would slam open the screen door and whistle through every crack and crevice. It was the kind of place that you pass while driving through the country and think, look at that abandoned house. It was the 21st century, and for $200 a month, we rented it. We included my boyfriend, his hound dog, and according to a friend who visited frequently, a giant rat snake nicknamed Rufus, who feasted on the healthy population of mice that lived in the walls. I had no idea about these other residents when I moved across the country to live with him. I brought just a few things. I thought we'd only stay until the year ended in high school where he taught. Then we'd find teaching jobs overseas and move on to a life of adventure and sophistication. I brought my computer and the Urkel doll given to me by my best friend years earlier. Urkel had a string in his back, and when you pulled it, he would announce, "Look what you did." It was given to me as a joke, but over the years, the kitschy sweetness grew on me. One windy night, something woke me up. The house creaked. Sitting up, I was surprised to see a gray-haired woman in a chair at the end of our bed. She was looking down at her hands and didn't seem to notice me. I blinked. She didn't disappear. I must be dreaming, I told myself, and laid back down. The next day, I asked Ken if he noticed anything. Nothing. We hosted a Halloween party, and all of his friends came to the house. I hung fake green cobwebs from the dollar store next to real cobwebs. Ken was a bit of a celebrity because he wasn't from there. The people we knew, the people at the party, had all grown up within 50 miles of the house. This wasn't the Delta. Most of the people in this part of the state were white. many of their parents remembered when the FBI was searching for 3 missing civil rights workers in the summer of 1964. That house was only a few miles from the road where the bodies of Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner were found. I sat on the porch during the party, sipping my cold Coors. As the night darkened, the men started a bonfire in the front yard. Those guys loved to come to party at our house. Even though they themselves lived in modern homes with HVAC units and recessed lighting, something about the 100-year-old house seemed to give them permission to act in ways that they wouldn't at their own house. I heard someone make jokes about Mr. I Hate White People, referring to a prominent, respected African American. The bedroom with the old lady ghost and the possibility of a visit from Rufus was frightening, but it was better than eavesdropping on conversations that were as old as the house. The next morning, I awoke early to clean up. I made sure the fire in the front yard was out. Then I noticed something hanging from the tree near the fire. It was Urkel. Those motherfuckers had lynched Urkel. Has there ever been a less threatening African-American male on the planet? And they strung him up. I pulled down Urkel and stomped back into the bedroom. We need to get out of this goddamn place, I said to my blurry-eyed boyfriend. I meant the house, the county, the state. I never saw Rufus, but whenever I heard the scratching of tiny rodent feet, followed by a creaking of boards, I knew he was there, alive and well, living alongside us, even when we tried to pretend he wasn't.
Yeah.
Ellyn Snider.
Okay. Your new home, possibilities, warmth, cuts, empties, unease, as we dangle freely from kitchen counters. The storm outdoors held us in its pocket, encompassed us in a hug of thunder, a comfort suspended amidst pressure and shelter, a second wall of rainfall. Outlines ill-defined, a breathing kind of stasis, the balance sways us and the boundary laid somewhere in thunder shakes and pop refrains and rains roll through music's play. Elation boiling, we rejoice in the warmth of space created. With hair flips and hip shifts, our socks slip cross wood, land spin, switch position, pure movement, earnest and fluid, as if singing tunes to wooden spoons or wholehearted kitchen grooves could soothe all we held, and it did. There was no space for rumination. Vibration evaporated our frustration, and itchy thoughts rolled off shoulders. My fingers twitched a goodbye in the direction of which I think it landed. Good riddance. The sweet memory is bookended with bitter tastes, and the frame cracked with insidious veins of shame and regret, but a focus on the evening's glow fades the shadows and softens the ghostly emotion, holds us warm like the storm did. Today, you're only an outline, but even then we weren't solid. We were something ethereal and fleeting, like the fire of flies and campsites, tears in the sky burning bright and fast before disappearing. Besides these shines, we kept the space between us vacant, content to unwind in silent silos, and after hours of dancing, the music gave way to the beat of the rain, and we lay separated on the unremarkable living room carpet, palms up, listening quietly to the storm we have yet to face.
Brian Grosz.
Brian! Hang up, old man stand. I'm with you on the electrical thing. Friday, my cleaning lady was over at my place, and she said to me, "You do realize that your TV is flipped on and been off 3 times since I've been here." When my friend Jonas was spending a week after doing disaster relief in Houston, he stayed with me. He's like, "Dude, twice your radio has gone on your stereo at about 2 o'clock in the morning." We all have a frequency. And sometimes we tap into it. But I'm with you. And it was the night that, it was a Monday night. I had a dream where all of a sudden there were a lot of lights in my apartment. I was in my apartment, and they all started flashing out. That was the night that a lot of people died in Las Vegas. So, that's it. It was a dark and stormy night. Goslings and ginger beer. Killing my kidneys and leveraging my liver into oblivion. I overlooked the train tracks as a Marlboro comes close to burning my knuckles, while the endless centipede of a freighter creates rolling thunder with none of the Tesla magic of lightning, but a storm nonetheless, rattling the rafters beneath my patio. Well, what's the destination? What's the cargo? Which side of the tracks am I living on? Questions you can ask about yourself. Or just ask a half-naked man with a gut full of rum, watching the world pass by, wondering if he should hop on to the slow train to nowhere and somewhere at the same time.
Up next, our birthday girl, Ruiz.
Okay, so I hope y'all will indulge me since it is my birthday. I'm actually going to read something that I wrote for my last birthday, and I haven't read it for a year, so I'm kind of curious what it'll come out as. I'm 45 today, watching in awe as my hands move across the page, as if riding a wave I cannot see. Small, supple, strong. Notice the cute white tips of my nails like little crescent moons. I look down at my flat belly, my perky breast. I'm 45 this week, and I love my body more now than I ever did when I was 18. I'm proud of the marathon it has run and a 10-mile-a-day relay while playing hacky sack with strangers on the highway. 3 pregnancies, 2 births, and the magic of nursing a child resting tenderly on my bare chest. I appreciate the way my eyes pop open at 5 a.m. with the overwhelming impulse to spring out of bed and greet the day. I relish the way it envelops my loved ones, wrapping them tight with muscled arms and legs, mimicking Mother Ursa's snug embrace. I enjoy the way my skin pushes against my clothes, no longer sucking in my breath to be something it's not, but fully expanding into who I am. I smile at the peak of my midriff when I raise my arms, stretching elastic to the sky. The playful flash of pink, not so much sexy as sensual. Sexy is for someone else's pleasure. This is me. All 120 pounds, 5 foot 3 inches of me. Compact and tough, tingling with life. I can't lose myself in someone else's world anymore. I'm too invested in my own, too curious and intrigued by what comes next. So even though I might melt like warm chocolate as you massage my shoulders from behind as I write, close my eyes and drink you in as your lips lightly brush my cheek, I may even slip between the sheets and slide up close to the warmth radiating from you, explore what it means to fully inhabit these bodies we've been given, curling up tight or stretching out bare, feeling the kiss of the fan on sweaty skin. I'll still be up at the crack of dawn, lighting the candle. Life is too precious to be squandered, so I savor it in my mouth like tomatoes from the garden, the explosion of a peach picked from a tree. I yearn to peel away the protective casing, scratch beneath the surface. I want to feel the life of the tree when I touch it, solid and smooth. The tree who sacrificed itself so I could ride upon its flesh at this long, sturdy table. I want to hear the voice of that tree who once stood majestic in the forest, songs whistling through its leaves, still vibrating in this wood. I want to know my own face before my parents were born. Recognize the seed of her still emanating from my center. Go back to the tree, the seed, the soft, supple hands, watching the words pour out of them like liquid on paper. Watercolors blending, creating new hues, allowing me to be reborn, to reshape my life again with each breath. Like a river stone rubbed smooth by the constant flow of water, turning it over and over with my nimble fingers like a precious gem, observing where it catches light. Its strength is its vulnerability, its capacity to be molded and shaped over time. So let the critics spin themselves out like critics rubbing their legs together in the night. Pounding primate chests don't impress me. I will stand firm in the storm, counting the rings on my tree, spiraling out from my core stronger each year. And I will take on all who try to belittle, condescend, or control me, recognizing even the slow drain of power and agency that masquerades as love and concern. I have no use for you anymore.
Aralyn Hughes.
I grew up in the 1950s on Highway 66, or Route 66, in a small town. And I used to call it a peek and plum town. Peek around the corner, plum out of town. That's what it was like. In the 60s, I went to college. And during finals one year, they brought out board games. And I had remembered that one of the things that I loved the most growing up in that small town was playing board games. I played Clue, I played Sorry, I played Monopoly. And it would just go on. Sometimes we would stay all night at each other's house and get up the next morning and continue to play the game. They were Parker Brother games, and most of them were board games. You would roll the dice, and then you'd have a little pawn, and you'd get to go two squares or 10 squares or whatever. So that's what I was used to. And I had learned a lot growing up about leadership. Some people call it bossy, because I was the only one that stood the rules like, you know, like they should be understood. I learned to lose. I learned to lose and not be the winner all the time, and I learned to be a good sport about it, and I learned to take turns. So when they whipped out in finals in the 60s in college, the board game, I was all over it. But it was called the Ouija board, and it was made by Parker Brothers, and it was a brown wooden board with numbers and letters on it, and a little thing called a planchette, and two people would get their hands on that planchette, and it would spell out words and numbers. Well, I looked at that and I said, well, now what are the rules? And it was like, well, there's not any rules really. You just do this, and you speak with the dead, you speak with the afterlife, you speak with the spirits. Well, I thought to myself, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I wasn't born in a cabbage patch. I'm too smart for this. I'm not doing it. So I went on about my business. Well, one night in my room, they were all playing that Ouija board, about 8 or 10 of them on the two single beds there for myself and the roommate. I was at my desk typing some paper. And they would spell out these things. So, no and yes was easy, but sometimes it would be like, that they were getting married or something like that. But there was one that was really stumping them. And it would spell out the letters, and they were writing them down, they were trying to cut and figure out what it said. And finally they said, I got it! It says, tell Aralyn to stop typing. And I was at my desk with that little electric typewriter, and I just about wet my pants. I picked up the typewriter and I left the room. But then I was curious. So I started getting all the girls in my sorority house who had not played the game, didn't know what was going on, and I'd have them get on the other side, and I'd say, now don't pull on that thing. And I'd say, don't pull on that. They'd say, you're pulling on it. No, I'm not. So I was experimenting to see why this thing worked. And it made me crazy. I asked it all kinds of things, and one of the things I asked it, because I always had wanted to be in what we had at our college, Oklahoma State University, mortarboard, which were the top scholars of the school. And I said, who's going to be tapped for mortarboard this year? Spelled out, Lynn, Marta, and Aralyn. Well, as you can tell, I was not an A+ student because I'm playing this board game during finals. I couldn't imagine that I would be picked for mortarboard. But I got kind of excited. I couldn't sleep that night, and I was thinking, you know, maybe it just made a mistake. Maybe a lot of other people flunked out last semester. My grades looked better. I didn't know what. But as you might guess, the next day, Lynn and Marta were picked for mortarboard, and I was not. So I went back to the board, the talking board they call it, the spirit board, whatever, and I said, why did you tell me that I was going to be picked for mortarboard and I wasn't? And it spelled out, I was just teasing you. So the thing I learned from the experience with the Ouija board is there's just certain things in life that you're never going to understand, and that's just the way it is.
All right, the Poetic Butcher.
Yay.
So what I normally do is social commentary, but since it's almost Halloween, I thought we'd use the horror genre and have a little funny imagery. I'm about to get big. Open Pandora's box. Release infections like Black Plague. Medusa reflection, turn you to stone. Turn back to light. Body rock to a pillar of salt. Tattoo 666, an omen, an atrocitus. Engraved is the cicatrix. I need an exorcist to change this nightmare into a dream. I need rest from eating flesh and soil and green. My side dish, a monster mash and potatoes au gratin, rotten like sea hag. Take your nag on the last ride. That horse with no name, breathing flames, eyes bloodshot red. The headless horseman throwing flaming pumpkin head. I'm shooting flaming Dr. Pepper. Take the good doctor and douse him in gasoline, drown him in kerosene. Now, let's get you wrapped up, mummified and terrified. I tried watching Tentacles of the Giant Squid, but it had no sequel. This is the giant porcupine visits the sick people. Eat that poison apple while I drink a Snapple to wash down the tombstone pizza. Tombstone pile driver by the undertaker. Maker of widows, taker of souls. That's child's play for Chucky, Frankenstein, Boris Karloff. To rip arms off. You need another one? Use the one from the Lady of the Lake. And I'm hungry like the wolf. Order up. I'll take a steak. He'll take a steak. Another vampire. Burn him in campfire. First, douse him in gasoline. Drown him in kerosene. Dracula, Blackula, Count Chocula. Man, they suck! I drank Bloody Marys with Count Blah. Leave drunk werewolves in London, drinking a silver bullet. Coors is dead to me. The undead, they dead. They're not really dead, but they back again, and they dead again. Their body here, their mind gone. Fuck it, they dead. Zombie, bow and kiss the ring. Then, off with your head, rub them with Vaseline. Douse them with kerosene. Drown them in gasoline. Strike the match. Now, I've been summoned here to inform you that there's a new all-inclusive poetry event, metaphorically challenged, hosted by me, the Poetic Butcher. It returns November 1st at the Vortex. It also would be November 15th at Cherrywood Coffee House. Please come. If you need a flyer, I have them. Thank you.
3 reasons why it's important that you are here today. In the first massacre in my homeland, 21-year-old Julian Knight got drunk, put on an army uniform, got a gun, and shot people up on the main street of Collingwood called Hoddle Street. Our first massacre, Hoddle Street Massacre. After that, there was a Queen Street Massacre, and there was a big one in Tasmania. The government decided to get rid of all the guns, but before that happened, 3 months after that first massacre, the people in that area where I live, in Clifton Hill, blocked the road on Sunday, planted 3 trees on one side, 3 trees on the other, held hands, and there were 300 of us, and they cried together to make the area not a place of violence, but to reconsecrate it for a dormitory suburb, which is where we live peacefully. My friend Tony Walsh, about 4 weeks ago, there was a massacre in Manchester, at the Ariana Grande concert. Does anyone remember that one? Okay. Well, he had written a poem 8 years ago about "We are the people," like Carl Sandburg's poem, "We are the people, yes, what else will you call us?" And he said, "We are the people of Manchester, and you cannot intimidate us. You cannot make us smaller because we love each other." Now, Ariana Grande came back to Manchester 3 weeks after, when they organised a benefit for the people killed at that massacre. And he was the first person on. He was a poet in front of 50,000 people at the Sheffield Arena. And he read that poem there. And that poem has been put to dance music, sung by Oasis and all these other music people have taken the poem around the world. The third reason you're here today, well, it's words against weapons. And this is a benefit for words articulating the pain and sorrow of a gun is a failed poem and a bomb is a failed conversation. We're still articulating and communicating. The third reason we're here this afternoon and why this ritual is so important is that maybe 2 weeks ago you were here for 100,000 Poets for Change. So were 9 other poets. 9 poets representing 100,000 Poets for Change. It was an international reading, meaning that there are people still conscious enough to actually desire peace through communication and clear articulation, actually stating what the problem is, but stating solutions and panaceas for the complex days we find ourselves in now. So it's vital and important and unique that we are here today and speak in Malvern Books, which is a secular temple for clear, conscious communication. Call it poetry, call it stories, call it performance, whatever you call it. It is still a way for us to sing with each other and to sing our futures in.
All right, so that concludes a dark and stormy night. Thank you all for coming out. Next month, we are meeting here again, November 12th. The theme is Reinvented Past. And this is the time of the year where I always solicit and only 2 people respond, but I'm going to do it again because I can't do it all by myself. Please email or go to the meetup group or somehow communicate to me which themes you'd like to write on. It's amazing. I've been doing this for 5 years, which means by the end of this year, that'll be 60 themes that I posted. So I do need your help if you have some suggestions. Otherwise, thank you for coming out.